for a while about whatever our subject matter is for the day.
What if
Then
I
we'll
turn it
answer
back over
questions.
to you just because I want to see what you're going to do with it?
Which is what? What? You're making me do this?
I'm being silly and playful. I was like,
Yes,
you turn it to me and I'm going to give it back to you and let's see what you do today.
a little dosey do.
No,
Yeah.
so I've actually been, I've been thinking a bit about a topic that we could talk about today, and something that has been on my mind a lot. And I'm just going to kind of, what's that word? Like free flow this, like, is there, many of you have probably heard of like the Karpman, drama triangle, that sort of thing. And one of the places that is a learned behavior that we can often go is the victim role. And interestingly, I actually had somebody recently tell me that they had gone and tried some betrayal trauma groups as they were a betrayed partner, and basically just felt like maybe it was helpful at first, but really was like I couldn't stay there. It just, for whatever reason, they felt like they got stuck. And and in kind of exploring what was going on, it really made me think of the victim role. So let's talk a little bit about why the victim role exists. And I think, and honestly, let's keep it out there. Any of us can go victim, and I'm not making this about betrayed partners. Somebody who's struggling with addiction is often fantastic at being victim, right? Any of us, whether at any place in our lives, we can go to the victim role. And the victim role really stems from this place of being victimized. And when we are victimized or in the middle of being victimized, it feels powerless. It feels like we are stuck, we can't go anywhere. And especially as a child, when you're being victimized, you really are stuck and you need somebody to come in and rescue you from the victimization, from the abuse, because as a child, you don't typically have the capability or the power. You don't have the knowledge. Oftentimes, you're being abused by an adult. Oftentimes, it's a trusted adult. And so you learn that victim role because this is literally what you're being taught by somebody who is abusing you. Now, when we become adults, it's learning how to take that power back. So that is a difficult transition, especially if going into a victim place has gotten us the well-deserved attention that we needed. So then we learn, hey, if I go victim, I get the attention I need, and my needs get met, I get fulfillment. But as we get older, sometimes we can get stuck in a victim role. There's nothing wrong with recognizing that you have been victimized. There's really nothing wrong with recognizing I'm in a victim place. I've been victimized. The key, I think, for all of us is to learn, how do I shift myself out of that? I once had a friend tell me I was victimized, and then I became a survivor. So I was a victim, a survivor, and then a thriver. And making those steps from being a victim to a survivor to a thriver, I liked kind of that symbolism there. And making those steps is tough. Moving from a place of feeling powerless, moving from a place of legitimately being powerless, to how do I learn to survive and start to act for myself, to now how do I learn to thrive, act for myself, and learn to empower other people. That process is, I would say, slow, difficult, and one thing I've learned about myself, it's easy for me to go to a victim place. It's something I can come in and out of. And I have to own, hey, you know what? I'm in a victim place. I'm not taking ownership. I am not allowing myself to be empowered. So I wanted to see if maybe we open that up a little bit. Oh, I also wanted to say one of the things that makes the victim role very difficult is that it doesn't allow long-term connection. And sometimes it doesn't allow short-term connection. Connection meaning somebody being able to show up for us, to be vulnerable, for us to be vulnerable with them, for them to be vulnerable with us. As an adult, if I'm in a victim role, sometimes I'm in that role thinking, I need someone to show up for me. I need them to pity me. And it's not like I'm consciously thinking this, by the way. It just happens when I'm in that role. I need them to pity me. And if they show up for me, it'll feel great. But sometimes they show up for me and I go, no, you're not really showing up for me. You're just pitying me. And then if they don't show up for me, it's, oh, see, you weren't going to show up for me to begin with. And so whether they try or don't try, it's a lose-lose in both situations. So learning to get out of the victim role, take accountability, empower ourselves allows us to get the human connection that we need. And I think it's easy for anybody, whether we're a betrayed partner, whether we're struggling with addiction, to be in a victim place. And we have to learn why we do it. We have to learn why we go to a victim place, what we're trying to achieve. We need to own it, talk to other people about it, let them know that we go victim, and be accountable. So much about being accountable, being responsible for what we do, why we do it, be gentle with ourselves. That's not easy. Be gentle with myself, because I learned the victim mode as a survival mechanism, as a survival technique. So I'm not going to beat myself up for having maybe an unhealthy coping style. I'm going to love myself for that. And I'm going to recognize somebody else who's struggling with in a victim place, and I'm going to love them and know that they're in a rough place and that I can't rescue them from it, but I can be there. So, Scott, what are your thoughts? We've also got some fun questions rolling in. You're on mute, Scott.
Maybe that's a good thing. I actually love the Karpman Drama Triangle. You know, it's three corners. You got the victim, the perpetrator, and the rescuer. But there's only two people. So, you know, there's always, you can have an open corner, but you're always going to have two corners filled. And if I choose to camp out in the victim role, I'm forcing you to either be the perpetrator or the rescuer. I mean, because there's no more room in the victim corner. And if I just stay there, it's no fun for you either. And when I want you to be the rescuer, you're probably going to be the perpetrator. And when I want you to be the perpetrator, you're going to try and rescue me. And it just creates drama. That's why we call it the drama triangle. And I don't know what that means in the purpose of this discussion, but I always, it's like a corner can get really crowded really quickly when I camp in it. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really can, and sometimes we might fight for a corner. And the effort of fighting for a corner, obviously, if we're fighting for a corner, we might be taking the perpetrator role. You know, let me get you out of the victim role so that I can get into the victim role. And it really just requires, I think, for even just one of us to own where we're at. I don't have to engage in the drama triangle with you, but I can love you and recognize, hey, we're in this, you're in this, and I'm here, and I'm ready to connect whenever you're ready to come out of this space.
Yeah, and I think that dynamic, addict, I'm an addict. Addicts, we love to be in the victim role. We love to feel put upon by the world. It gives us an excuse to drink or use or act out. But then we do things that where we're the perpetrator, but we still want to camp in the victim corner. And then we see the betrayed partner come along and want to pry us out of the victim corner and stick us up in the perpetrator corner because, we just cheated on them, or they want to be the victim for a while. And it creates a lot of strife. And I think what you said about just where are we really, is important. And I have a question though, and before we go to the Q&A, is Are we always in the Karpman Drama Triangle, or with work, can we escape that triangle where there are only three roles?
It's so funny that you said this. Somebody told me, and I don't know if it's Cartman that did this, or if somebody else, but there's another triangle out there, and it was like the empowerment triangle or something. I've seen it before. I haven't studied it. I should probably look it up if I'm going to come on here and talk about it as an expert.
I'm
But
going to look it up. I'm serious. I'm going to look it up. I want to know.
yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of it, and I've heard about it before, but really, I think we're not destined to always be in it, right? Like, I think that with ownership and accountability, we can learn the skill set to get out. I mean, it's that age-old question. If this is what we've learned, am I this way, right? And whether we've learned it, are we really stuck this way, right? I mean, my opinion is no. We can learn how to get out. Maybe this sounds a little odd, but if a sociopath can learn empathy, we can learn to get out of a drama triangle. Even if it's a skill set to get out, even if it's not completely heartfelt, you can still learn the skill to get and stay out and have healthier relationships, even if I don't totally know how to get rid of it in my life.
Yeah, now that you say
that,
that's a good answer. I'm thinking about like dependency needs. Most conflict in relationships, in my experience, arises because one or both of us has some sort of a human dependency need that's not being met.
Right.
I need to feel loved or validated, and you're not loving and validating me. So there's conflict. So if we can learn to speak the truth about our needs and receive some empathetic support, it seems to me we probably can escape this triangle.
Absolutely. Right. So it's about learning to find, well, I mean, if you look at it, our unhealthy behavior is a bid for attachment, right? Any unhealthy behavior, whether it's addiction, whether it's getting into the victim role, we are crying out, wanting attachment. And so learning how to fulfill our attachment needs in healthy ways really is so much of the key to coming out of whatever struggle we're in. The problem with that, it's terribly difficult, right? If what I learned as a kid, what I learned growing up, what I've learned as an adult is that the only thing that's safe is my unhealthy behavior, whether it's an addiction, whether it's staying in victimization, right? Sometimes it's safest just to stay in the victim place. I know what it's like here. It's warm and cozy and comfortable. I might be starving, but I know what to expect. So, but it requires the discomfort of actually learning about our attachment wounds, learning about what those underlying needs are. And then we've got to risk and start to reach out and ask other people, hey, I need you. And it's crazy. How do I ask somebody for needs that I don't even understand about myself? And when they don't show up for me the way I need them to, is that going to further injure me? Well, it might. Terrifying. Yeah. And amazing.
Very scary, but great and worth the effort, but yes, so scary. If sex addiction is a lifelong problem, are sex addicts capable of true, genuine, and unconditional love?
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to separate this out just a touch. I'm going to say that if you take the issue of sex addiction and you make it like its own thing, which I struggle because I believe that sex addiction is a coping mechanism for injury. And so sex addiction in and of itself doesn't prevent somebody or make them incapable of true, genuine, and unconditional love. Now, acting out in a sex addiction and not ending that unhealthy behavior, if now I will make a blanket statement that yes, if they continue to act out in the behavior and don't learn to attach, then they are not capable of true, genuine, and unconditional love. However, I was working with one of my groups the other night, and it was said, if I can't get sobriety, I'm never going to be able to have a healthy relationship. And I challenged it a little bit. If you're talking about sobriety from just a pure abstinence standpoint, um, my challenge to that is I know people who are struggling with their addiction, but they're honest about their slip ups, they're honest about their behavior. They do regular check-ins. They're not hiding and keeping secrets, but they are struggling down the road. They have great connections with their spouse. Fantastic relationship building is going on. And so sobriety, I might be getting into a little bit of a tangent here, but follow me. Sobriety from sex addiction or any addiction isn't necessarily the answer to true, genuine, unconditional love, right? You can be sober and not connected. You can be sober and not have a close connected relationship. So I don't believe that sex addiction, though it is a lifelong pull, it's a lifelong craving or desire that must be managed. I don't believe it is the cause of that, true and genuine unconditional love being a block. Now, somebody may have some other co-occurring issue going on, and in certain circumstances, somebody may not be able to do the work they need to do to have true, genuine, unconditional love. But I wouldn't put it directly onto any addiction, as I would the attachment wounds or the underlying mental health issues that person might be have going on underneath. I feel like I said that three times.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think if we can heal the underlying attachment wounds and learn to be vulnerable and honest, we're absolutely capable of real love, whatever real love means. But yeah, I don't see why not. But active addiction makes it very hard.
Oh yeah, and I have to be careful there. Somebody who's acting out in their addiction every day, but is being honest about it,
Yeah.
it's a rough place, because are they doing what they need to be doing and being honest? Yes. At the same time, they're still numbing pretty heavy. So we're on a good road. But and I'm just going to make this up, somebody acting out once a week, but being honest about it and checking it in, I guess it could depend. What's the acting out behavior? How damaging is it to the relationship? How damaging is it to that individual and their psyche and their shame? So, but yes, it is possible to be still struggling with your addiction and be able to have true, genuine, unconditional love.
Yeah, that's a really cool topic. We could probably spend an entire hour on just
God.
that. Yeah.
Honestly, great question. I love it.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Dr. Rob mentions there are two separate minds, the addict mind and the authentic mind. Is it possible to obliterate or get rid of the addict mind so that only the authentic mind remains? Another interesting question.
This is a hard one. My simple answer is going to be no. And the reason I say that, it's tough because I'm not one who likes to say once an addict, always an addict. But what I like to tell people is once you've developed an addiction, the pulls of the addiction can always wrap their tendrils around you and pull you in, right? Like the moment you think you have it, the moment you think it's obliterated, the moment you let your guard down is the moment it's going to sneak in and get you. So, to say, yes, it's possible to obliterate it. I mean, maybe, but I would certainly never suggest that it's been obliterated and you're good. Don't worry about it, because that's going to put you in a terrible place. You might let your guard down and not be doing the work you need to be doing. But do I think that we can replace it with healthy behaviors and live the rest of our lives not only sober, but also in an authentic place? Yes, absolutely. And do I think that somebody can say, I'm 30 years sober, I'm 20 years sober, however long sober, and I know it's right back there, but I'm never going back to it. I'm never going to let it get me. And in some sense, obliterate it because they recognize the power it can have. Yes. Like, so it's one of those that it depends on how you consider obliterate, but those neural pathways are in our brain. All it takes is us not doing our dailies, not living an authentic life, and it can come back and get you at any time. How's that
Yeah,
for
I
an
talk,
answer,
I,
Scott?
I talk about this a lot on my Wednesday webinar with Dr. David Fawcett. We're both brain geeks, and we talk about like a superhighway burned into the brain. Addiction is a superhighway. It's burned into the brain. We can step away from it. The weeds will come up, the cement will crackle, but it doesn't ever really go away. And we can create new, healthier pathways, that are the authentic mind. But that old superhighway, it may be crumbled, but it's probably still there. So I kind of agree with Matt. We don't have to act on it, but it's probably there. Hi, Matt. Thanks for the webinar. It's so helpful. Can you address the role of early attachment injuries, especially neglect? And what can you? Sorry, I read this wrong. Can you address the role that early attachment injuries, especially neglect, play in approval/attention seeking by women or from women by the sex addict as an adult? So I'm assuming we have a male sex addict who's attention seeking from women.
From females.
Yeah.
This is a really good question with so many possibilities. The role of early attachment injuries, especially neglect. So if I'm remembering correctly, one of the things that I love Troy Love's book, Finding Peace. It talks so much about attachment and injuries, and I'd have to go grab it, and it's somewhere here. But in there, if I remember right, if we're talking about neglect specifically, the underlying attachment need is for attention, nurture. And so early attachment injuries, really, if you think about an injury, it's a deficit, right? And so my early attachment injuries are going to be my greatest deficits as I grow. So if I don't learn how to get my attachment injuries met in healthy ways, then I'm creating this chasm of need that becomes, if I add an addiction to it, like sexual addiction, for instance, because I think that's what sex addiction, then it becomes this chasm of insatiable desire that, because I'm trying to meet the need, it's like trying to eat popcorn to get protein. No matter how much popcorn I eat, I'm never getting protein. And so, at least I think. I'm not a nutrition expert. That was just my random example. But so don't follow my nutritional advice, just so we're clear. So those early attachment needs create these massive deficits. And so typically, as I'm working with somebody, I'm trying to figure out what are their early attachment injuries. But interestingly enough, if it's neglect and it's the need for attention, which you say here, approval, attention seeking, I'm trying to open that individual up to say, let's take the sexualization out of the behavior. What type of attention, what type of approval did you need? And most of the time, if I'm working with an adult, it's not me teaching them how to get healthy approval or healthy attention from women. Most of the time, I'm trying to teach that adult how to go back and give themselves the attention or approval that they needed from women and so that they learn to be confident within themselves, so that when they get healthy attention and they get healthy approval from a woman, it actually builds them up. But if I have a deficit and I'm going to a woman, even if I'm not using sex or sex addiction as my mode of receiving, if I have a healthy need and I'm going to them saying, give me attention, give me approval, and they give it to me, but I'm not in a space where I can actually receive it, because I haven't learned to approve of myself. I haven't learned that I'm worthy of attention, that I'm worthy of approval. It's just going to go right through me. That's even in a healthy situation. Now you take an unhealthy situation, you add sex to it, and that's one reason why it becomes insatiable, because it never works. It feels good in the moment. It feels almost like it works, just like eating a bunch of popcorn fills you up, but it's absolutely worthless. It doesn't give you any nutrition. So again, I think I'm answering your question. Scott?
I think there might be some protein in the butter on the popcorn. That's all I have to add. Yeah, I think you covered.
So get more specific on that question. But the toughest thing about that, your wound, and I guess let me try and touch on it this way. When we receive an attachment injury, we can receive an attachment injury from, like, of neglect. We can receive it from a male, get some fulfillment through females as we grow, and then over sexualize that attention and that emotional attachment. And so now, even though our deficit was really, or our injury was caused by a man, we've now attached the need fulfillment to women and sexualization around women, right? Or the injury can come from a woman, and so we attach that onto women. It can work any sort of strange direction. And so some of the work you're going to need to do is to figure out how that applies specifically to you. I do highly recommend Troy's book. I of course recommend going through his book with a qualified therapist, because that'll do even way more work there. But anyway.
Yeah, and I think for Troy's Friday morning webinar, he actually talks about the stuff from the book in the webinar.
Sure.
Okay, next one here. When my wife and I argue, I almost always feel like I'm in trouble. When this happens, I try to sit with it, but there are times when I can't, and I get defensive, angry, tell lies, avoid confrontation, or just plain leave and storm off. What can I do to not get defensive and learn to sit with my spouse's pain? Great question. And I think every addict who's in a relationship and trying to get sober wants to know, how do I not get defensive? Because it's the natural response.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I need to go through this again, because did you just skip parts of this question? Or no, there it is. All right, all of a sudden my brain got, so so I'm gonna sit, I got all excited actually about the first part. The first part says, when my wife and I argue, I almost always feel that I'm in trouble. And one question I ask myself, I ask other people, in that moment when you're in trouble, how old do you feel? I love that question, because the truth is, if you feel in trouble, you are most likely, and I talked about this probably in one of my earliest webinars, this dynamic of where we in a marital relationship, we need to be in a peer-to-peer relationship where we're equally giving to each other, we're equally accountable to each other. And by equally giving, we may give different things, but we both give and take. We both give and receive from each other. But in a parent-child relationship, a parent gives to the child, and any benefit that a parent gets from a child relationship is kind of the byproduct. It's not, we don't have children so that we feel worthy, so that we feel good enough, right? It would be like going to our child and saying, hey, I'm feeling down. Can you tell me that I'm a good parent, right? Gross. That doesn't work. And And so when you say I'm in trouble, one of the first things I'm going to throw out to you is ask yourself if you feel like you're in a child role. What you need to do in that moment, if you feel in a child role, is to say, hey, hold on, I'm feeling like I'm in a child role. Now, you don't want to say to your partner, you are putting me in a child role. That is not true. That is you being in a victim place. You just need to own, with the interaction that's occurring right now, I'm feeling like I'm in a child role. Either I need a second to try and come out of it, or just by owning it and saying I'm feeling like I'm in trouble is a great place to start. Hey, hold on, I feel like I'm in trouble. Give me a second, and I want to re-engage, knowing, let me give myself some affirmation. You know what? I'm not in trouble. My I think you said wife. Yep, my wife has a legitimate concern. Let me lean in and understand her concern. This isn't about me doing something wrong, and she may be upset about something I've done wrong, but that's okay. So let's see. When this happens, I try to sit with it. There are times I can't. Okay, and so what I've already talked about, I think, is answering your question. The best thing to do is to say, I'm getting defensive. I'm feeling defensive. I'm feeling angry. I feel myself wanting to lie right now, right? The best thing you can do, because you have a whole list here of really good self awareness. I want to get defensive, angry, tell lies, avoid confrontation, or just plain leave and storm off, which is avoiding confrontation. And so own all of that. Say all of that out loud. You might even get her to go, what? Because she's not used to maybe you being accountable. So own it, say it all out loud. That's like the best thing you can do in that situation, because you're telling where you are emotionally. I'm feeling in trouble. And then you're stating what you want to do without actually doing it. I want to lie. I want to shut down. I want to run away. I want to get mad at you. And then you want to follow that up. But I know if I did that, it would hurt you. I know if I did that, it would leave you feeling rejected or abandoned or misunderstood. You want to lean into how you're impacting your partner in that, or how it would impact your partner in that moment. And let me tell you, just that process alone is going to typically leave your partner going, wow, it feels good to hear you own your side and to know how you impact me. Now, they might say, no, it's not true. I wouldn't be hurt or whatever. That's fine. But you're leaning in with empathy, which is what you really should be doing. And you are sitting with their pain just in the process of owning that situation. So, did that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, actually. So, I'm going to pull this one out of the chat feature because it's related to a lot of what we've been talking to. This is an addict who has recently uncovered sexual trauma from childhood, and they want to know, are there strategies for not slipping into the victim mode and self-pity and all that stuff? So this is a fresh discovery of early life sexual trauma.
Yeah, wow. The best thing you can do is start to identify when you're in victim mode. And let me be clear about that. When you're actually in victim mode, it's terribly difficult to do. So what you want to do is when you get out. So let's just say for a moment, when this first happens, you're feeling the victimization come up. You typically, I mean, if you're on here typing this question, you're most likely not in a victimized place. And just like that, you're able to say, hey, here's where I slip into the victim role or the victim mode or self-pity. So start to let other people know about the pattern of yourself that you're discovering. And so that is in reality is us sharing our shame with other people. And I would share it with people who you feel like have earned the right to hear it. People who you feel like can hold that sacred space, because you're sharing with them in some sense bits and pieces of your trauma. You want to make sure you share that with people who are trustworthy, people who are going to be able to hold confidentiality and for the most part are going to be able to love you even if their stuff's coming up. So I think early on, one of the best things we can do is to journal about it, talk to people about it, do basic self-care, meditation, grounding techniques, breathing exercises, um, do basic self-care that brings you back into the present moment so that you're not dissociating into the trauma. We've talked in the past, therapies like EMDR can be very helpful to reduce some of those traumatic intensities. So um, this is what I would say to somebody who's early on. Now, as you gain strength from doing this, in the moment, you're going to be able to learn how to stop in the moment and just give it a voice. The more you do that, the less power it's going to have. But this is a long road. Um, I've done a lot of good work for myself in my life, and there are still times where I just have to own, you know what? I'm in a victim place right now. Most of the time at this, and I say this, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but like most of the time at this place in my recovery, I'm not having people point out where I'm in a victim role. I'm able to own that I'm in a victim role before somebody has to call me out on it. That doesn't mean I'm ready to get out, but these are kind of some of the steps and stages of getting out of that victim place. So hopefully this answers your question, but like I said, jump in and ask me more specifics.
Yeah, my experience with that mirrors Matt's in terms of, in the beginning, it's really hard to recognize when you're in the victim mode because you're in it. But as we come along and get some more experience, it gets easier. Um, but I would also mirror that doesn't mean I want to leave the victim stance when I'm in it. There's still times where I'm just like, just let me wallow for another hour, and then we can have a conversation. I just want to be angry for a little while.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, it
Not
happened.
that not that anger is wallowing, but yeah, totally. It's like, let me just sit here for a
Yeah,
little while. Don't touch me.
yeah. This pile of poop is warm, and yeah, it smells bad, but it's really warm and soft, and I'm just going to stay here for a little while.
Oh, it's terrible and true.
Yeah, yeah. What is an appropriate way to say something to stay out of the triangle? So when you feel yourself slipping into the Karpman drama triangle, whatever role, um, what can we do or say to stop that process?
This is another really fun question for so many reasons. You'll hear me say this a lot. The best thing you can say in a situation like that is just that. Hey, I feel myself slipping into the triangle, and your partner can be like, no, it's not. And that's always kind of my favorite comment because it's like, oh yeah, no, now we're in it. Like, if
Yeah,
that makes sense. Because if you feel yourself in it, you're in it, whether your partner agrees with you or not. Like if you're in it, you're in it, and in a way, you're both in it. I think one of the best things we can do is just say that we're in it. And sometimes this question is more asked, what's the right thing to say to help the other person get out? And at first when I read this, I thought that's what you were saying, but I don't think it is. Maybe, but I think the best thing to say is I feel like I'm in it. I want to be here for you. I want to support you, but I don't feel comfortable going into, and just own it out loud. Like I don't feel comfortable going into a persecutor role. That always hurts you. I don't feel comfortable going into a rescuer role because even though I'm here for you, I don't think you need me to solve your problem. I don't feel comfortable going into a victim role because I believe I can choose to have peace for myself without needing to go to a pity place or self-deprecating place or wherever, right? um so just owning it. But if you're asking what's the appropriate thing to say to keep the other person out of it, that's always a dangerous question because sometimes people will ask me, how do I keep them from going there? And we can get overly focused on trying to say the right thing, and let me tell you, that's exhausting. Exhausting to constantly feel like I have to say the right thing, to where we end up getting depleted. We end up getting exhausted and depleted if we're trying to figure out how to say the right thing all the time. And so do your best to use some of the things I said to stay out of it, knowing that you may never be able to say the perfect thing to keep them out. The best thing you can do is just to be honest about where you're at, own where your part in the process, um, speak to the impact that you have on your partner. And as you do that, you guys will slowly stay out of the cycle more and more just by virtue that you're not joining.
Yeah, one of the nice things about being in recovery, and particularly when the couple is in recovery, is you have this shared language. Um, and if you can do what Matt says, talk about, I don't want to be in the perpetrator role right now because, and I don't want to be in the rescuer role because, and I don't want to be in the victim because, if you both can picture that triangle, and you both know you don't want to be there, you can actually practice getting out of the triangle to the point where sometimes you can just go triangle and you both know, oh crap, let's back up. I have relationships like that where, we don't even have to say anything to each other. We just go, and it's like we have the whole conversation in our head and nothing's said out loud, and then we're good in like 3 seconds. But that's a lot of practice.
Yeah, that's a lot of practice and a lot of history together. Yeah. I wouldn't expect anybody to just expect that, because gosh, that sounds like a beautiful relationship that you've built.
And they are, but it takes a lot of work to get there.
Oh, for sure.
But and just so people know, it was right about probably the 40-minute mark of this where Matt explained, what to say when you don't want to be the perpetrator or the rescuer or the victim. So if you want to go back, because it was beautifully stated, and I was like, oh my God, I wish I wrote this down. So right about the 40-minute mark, give or take a minute or two, if you want to go back to it.
Oh wow, I'll have to go back to it. I don't know.
That was good stuff. Yeah, that was good stuff. You may want to get a poster of that and put it on the wall of your office. So, okay. When my husband keeps buying, hiding, and smoking cigarettes in secret, when he says he has quit, this is a boundary that he's committed to. I find them, I get upset that I can't trust him. And I think the husband's also a recovering alcoholic and porn addict. He says that getting caught lying about the cigarettes is different than getting caught lying about adultery, and the betrayed partners having trouble separating the many addictions. Am I wrong to link the lies and the secrets regarding the cigarettes to the lies about the adultery?
I mean, let me put it this way. I don't think you're wrong, because lies feel like lies. And so I think it is a natural, instinctual, relational thing for someone to lie to us, and then we go and it's obvious, and we go, hey, what else are we lying about here? And if you're lying about this, you could be lying about anything. Now, it doesn't mean that they are, right? So this is where I want to try and separate this out. Are you wrong to link the lies? No, you're not. I think your brain is wired that way because you're expecting truthfulness and trust and vulnerability in the relationship. And when you don't get that, it opens up that wound of betrayal. It is a betrayal. Let's just be clear. It is a betrayal. If you're lying about cigarettes, or if you're lying about whether you went to the gas station or not, it is a betrayal. It does not work in a relationship to have lying and dishonesty. Now, we could get down the road of, if your spouse says, hey, does this make me look fat? It is, you can say, again, because that's the whole lying thing, right? You can say, it's not my favorite outfit. I think you look better in other things, right? So keep in mind, not lying doesn't mean being mean or brutally honest in an unhealthy way, but lying in a relationship is a betrayal wound, and it's going to go back to old wounds. And so, no, you aren't wrong for linking them, but you have to be careful that because they're struggling, because your husband's struggling to give up nicotine and cigarettes, it doesn't mean that all those old behaviors are coming back. But I will say to somebody struggling with addiction, like, you got to be honest everywhere. You have to have, and really all of us have to be honest everywhere, regardless of what we're struggling with, in order to have a healthy relationship. So I don't blame you for having your betrayal wound come up. And that is not faulty thinking on your part that your wound is getting hit. It might be faulty thinking if you're going, well, it must be these other problems too. The sex addiction must be back. The porn must be back. That might be faulty thinking if you're making it an absolute. But I wouldn't blame you for having that fear. And that fear is there because you love him. So does that answer the question well enough, Scott, you think?
Yeah, Dr. Robb talks a lot in his book, Out of the Doghouse, about secrets and lies. And one of the things he says is with betrayal, it's less about what you did and more about lying about it and covering it up. And that hurts the betrayed partner more. Now, he's speaking about sexual behaviors there, but any addiction, what hurts more than anything is all the secrets and the lies and the gaslighting. And it does cause a betrayed partner, as Matt said, to question everything you've ever said and done and everything you say and do right now. And if you want to rebuild trust as an addict, as a betrayer, you have to be rigorously honest about everything all the time. Tell the truth, tell it faster. And if you're lying about the cigarettes, it's perfectly natural for your partner to wonder if you're lying about the porn. And a betrayed partner can't separate, those lies. It's just too hard. You got to re-earn the trust and stop lying about the cigarettes. I mean, I'm not a big fan of smoking. Quit smoking, but if you're not going to quit smoking, stop lying about it.
Yeah, just be honest. And because I've found in relationships, we may not like the behavior, but we can deal with the truth. And that's the hardest thing is essentially the partner is saying, you can't handle the truth. And so I'm going to keep it from you. And then, but then don't be upset about it because can't you see I was trying to protect you? And I'm like, that's ridiculous. So anyway.
Yeah, that's a tough one, a difficult situation, but yeah, just stop lying. It's a really good idea to stop lying.
Just stop. It's like, yeah, just quit cigarettes. I mean, I think nicotine's only the most addictive behavior known to man. I don't know if that's true, but it's pretty high up there.
It's high on the list. It's behind meth and cocaine, but ahead of opiates, believe it or not.
Oh, okay. And so, yeah, but just quit. Yeah, lying, man, I'm telling you, that is a learned behavior that is tough for people to give up. But regardless, it doesn't matter how tough it is. You need to learn in order to have healthier relationships.
Yeah. Okay. When I journal about my husband's abusive behavior toward me, he sometimes finds my notes and immediately dismisses what I've written as an indictment because the notes might be brief and only mention the incident, not the details about my feelings, because I did not have time to describe what happened. Is he right to label these notes as an indictment? Let's just back up and say, what is he doing reading your journal? But then and I'm just going to turn this over to Matt after I've had my say on that one.
Yeah. It's funny, Scott, is I love that you said that because I don't know that I was going to jump there immediately, but you're absolutely right. Like, if especially one, I think a journal needs to be sacred space. Like I need to be able to vomit out whatever I need to vomit out and know that it's not going to be read. Most likely that shows that your husband is feeling really insecure and that might need to be talked about. What is it you're feeling insecure about? Why is it that I can't have a private space to write down random thoughts? And why, to be honest, you shouldn't feel the need to describe it perfectly just in case he happens to read it. Now, if you are writing it, hoping he reads it, that's not healthy on your part, unless you write it and say, hey, I want you to read this, right? As far as him identifying it as an indictment, honestly, he can label it however he wants, meaning that's just a sign of his attachment wounds. And so the question really becomes a more vulnerable one for him. Why is it when I'm putting down details of what happened and my pain in that you feel indicted? Like, what is going on for you, right? That even though I'm still with you and I'm working through this and I want to be close to you, that I can't put down an incident with some pain that comes out this way for you. So, I mean, if you're, I mean, I almost feel like you're asking, you know, well, ultimately, hopefully that gives you enough of an answer. I guess there's several ways I could still go with that, but hopefully that answers it.
And addicts often complain about the flip side of this, where they're doing their therapy homework or their work group homework and, the Sex Addiction 101 workbook or something. And the betrayed partner sneaks in and reads their therapy work or and then gets really angry and and they always ask me, does she have a right to read my workbook? I'm like, well, you might want to set a boundary that says no, but if you want to share it. But yeah, it's the same thing. We both need in a relationship some sacred space that's only ours, and violating that.
There's a comment. Let's read the comment further down. It actually says, hubby here, my wife leaves these all over the house, everywhere. I'm not sneaking into her journal. She never writes down anything positive and never includes any context in her indictments. My wife does that. She reads my therapy work. Okay, so first of all, I'm hubby. I'll just call you that because that's how you identified yourself. I'm going to ask you to slow down a little bit. I imagine we're talking openly and you're listening. And obviously, we don't understand the context of everything going on, but I want you to slow down and ask yourself in this moment, do you feel yourself slipping into the victim role in any way? Because I could see where maybe you feel a little bit attacked. As Scott and I are jumping on saying, what are you doing? You're reading the journal. That's not okay, right? And if you're finding random notes that are laid about, I can appreciate going, oh, there's a note here. And I start reading it and going, oh my gosh, this feels painful. And this is about me being a terrible person, right? And so I think you could say, hey, I'd really appreciate it when you write these things that you keep it in a journal, because I really don't want to see it. I don't want to stumble upon this. And if you feel like you need to share it with me, I'd love for you to write these down, maybe go over them with your therapist, bring them to me at night or after a day or in the morning or at lunch, whenever. Compile them and then let's go through them together and see what you have going on. I want to hear your pain. I don't know that I understand when it's to be honest, I'm not even sure that I understand the concept here of, are they indictments? Like, what does that mean? But and if she is reading your therapy work, that makes me nervous. I think you guys need sacred space to where you can write things down without feeling or without fear that the other person's going to sneak in and read. So that goes both directions there, as far as sacred space and being able to journal and do therapy work without fear. Sorry, how did I do there, Scott?
Yeah, good. But you all need to set some boundaries about, what's public and what's not. Okay. I want to get to this next question here because I like it. Do you believe that an addict, I'm assuming this is a sex addict, can get to the point where he or she can have a solo sex relationship, meaning masturbation, that is private, not secret, from the betrayed partner? Is that something to strive for as a couple?
So this is a really good question. And I actually like the fact that it says, I am the betrayed, because what I hear is the non-addict partner, is asking the question.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I've had lots of people ask me this question. I've had people struggling with addiction. I've had betrayed partners. Sometimes they're asking for permission. Sometimes couples are actually just trying to figure out, okay, now that we've gone through this trauma, now that we've found some healing, what does our sexual relationship look like moving forward? And I love how it says, not secret. If it's going, okay, big old if here, if it's going to happen in a relationship and be a healthy situation, it has to not be secret, right? You can't do secrets anymore in a relationship where there's been, well, I'm going to throw it out that I don't think secrets in any relationship are healthy, but it doesn't necessarily mean everything needs to be public, if that makes sense. But we need to get away from the secrecy and the hiding. And so if it's going to be healthy, we need to stay away from the secrecy. Now, whether it's healthy or not, my answer is going to be this. It depends. It depends on the person. I've had couples who are in this stage of their relationship and they've gone to each other and said, hey, let's talk about this. Let's explore this and let's talk about the outcome. And I've had guys, men and women in recovery who have tried it and they're like, whoa, I can't do it. I feel the compulsiveness coming back. I can't do it because it makes me want to go to compulsive behavior and I can feel that superhighway opening back up. I've had other people where they're able to, and they're open and honest about it, and they've developed a pattern. I shouldn't say a pattern. They've developed an openness that they've been able to say they've been able to integrate it, and it works for them. It works for the coupleship. If I would say if a partner says no, I can't do it, it's too triggering, then it's off the table. And if the person struggling with addiction says, I can't do it, it's too much, it's off the table. All it takes is one of you not being okay with it. This has to be a together thing, as odd as that sounds. And the only time, and so here's the other thing you've got to watch out for. The only type of masturbation that I would suggest could be healthy is what's referred to as mindful masturbation. It can't be done with fantasy. It can't be done with dissociation. It can't be done with escaping. It can't be for pain management. Typically, you're looking at a situation where it's all about a body experience, a mindful experience, almost like a meditative experience. You're not escaping reality. You're not numbing pain. You're not soothing shame. But I've found for a lot of my people struggling with addiction, they can't do it. I've found some that can. So it's a vague response.
Yeah, the thing I want to add is this, this is a relationship boundary. Not only is it a sobriety issue for the addict, it's a relationship boundary that the couple has to agree on. And if one of the parties is not comfortable with it, and there is no agreement. So, if the betrayed partner says, no, that feels like a betrayal to me, I think as an addict, I would need to, whether I liked it or not, I would need to accept that and say, I don't want to betray my partner, so I guess I'm not going to masturbate. Now, I have every right to be pissed off about that or feel, controlled or whatever, but I also need to understand that, relationship boundaries are mutual. I don't get to unilaterally set them. So, which sounds like it's not what's happening here. It sounds like this is a discussion, and I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, no, this actually, to me, is usually a signal of a really healthy place in recovery for the couple, because now we're trying to figure out together, what does a healthy sexual relationship look like? Unfortunately, there's a lot of shame in the sexual relationship because there's so much shame tied to the sexual addiction. There's a lot of shame in any sexuality, where some people struggling with addiction go to sexual anorexia, which is not okay. Like the truth is, there needs to be a healthy place where the couple together can figure out a healthy sexual relationship together. So I love it. I love the question. It sounds like you guys are doing it right. Obviously, seek some help from your therapists and continue to explore the wonderful relationship that is sex between the two of you. So I highly encourage it.
Thank you. I'm looking down where we've run over. This hour went fast. These hours always go fast, but so
it's because you're so awesome.
Well, yeah, I know it's all about me, but so thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Matt, for your time. I want you all to know that Matt shows up and does this for free. He's not getting paid for this. This is a service that he provides. And all of our hosts on sex and relationship healing just do this out of the goodness of their hearts. And they're
It's
all
a,
wonderful people.
it's
So
a fun thing. And to be honest with you, I appreciate the people who show up here
yeah,
with vulnerability week after week that we do this. And I enjoy it. You guys make me think. You guys ask great questions. It's really enjoyable to see people fighting to live healthy.
yeah. There was a pause. It's really enjoyable to see people fighting. Pause to live.
To
I
live
was like,
healthy.
what? Okay. With that, I think we should log off. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
See you guys.